This video will cover the concepts of working time durations and elapsed time durations, including how they differ. How does knowing about this help us? There are different types of duration available to use within Microsoft Project that are useful for different situations. One example of this would be working time versus elapsed time. Knowing the differences between these and that Project gives you access to them can be helpful when writing a new program or reading and understanding an existing one. If you're reviewing a problem program, spotting elapsed times versus working times may help you get to the root of these issues quicker. We'll start with working time durations, as knowing what these are helps with outlining elapsed durations as well. Also, when you define a duration in the program, it comes in as a working time duration by default, so if you've used Project before, it's highly likely that you've already come across them. Basically, a working time duration is only counted during the time that Project thinks work is taking place. To know when work is taking place, Project uses something called a working calendar. It may vary by company, but a typical example of a working time calendar would be where we've got work taking place for 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday. By default, Project reflects this with a built-in working calendar that runs Monday to Friday from 8 AM to 12 PM and then 1 PM to 5 PM. So, by default, one working day to Project is a period of 8 working hours. If you tell Project that a task has a 5-day working duration, for the default working day calendar, you're saying there's a total amount of 40 hours of work. If this task was starting at the beginning of a Wednesday workday, it would not finish until close of play the following Tuesday workday. Another way to think of working time durations is to be those where you're planning to have resources committed to carrying out their tasks and activities. Usually, when Project makes a duration a working time duration by default, this is great as it's highly likely that the majority of your task durations will be working time durations. In construction, we'd expect most of the tasks in the program to rely on a resource that is associated with them that will operate according to a working time calendar. However, just because this is likely the majority case, doesn't mean that it always captures the way that things on the ground really operate. Some tasks or activities will happen regardless of whether there's anybody on site, or any working calendar-bound resource directly involved in performing the work. If a working time duration task only has time counted depending on what you've got on a working calendar, this means that there is time outside of what is counted that is being ignored. The easiest example of this non-working time would be the weekends, but it also applies to holidays and the time outside of working hours on working days. This brings us to the distinction between working time durations and elapsed time durations. A working time duration only counts working time towards progress of tasks. Non-working time is ignored. An elapsed time duration, on the other hand, allows both working and non-working time to count towards the progress of tasks. So one elapsed data project is a period of 24 hours. If you tell Project that a task has a 5-day elapsed duration, it's going to count forward 120 hours. So if such a task started at the very beginning of Wednesday, it wouldn't finish until the very beginning of the following Monday. How do we tell Project that we want our duration to be an elapsed time? We can define an elapsed duration by adding an E prefix to the time unit. So for example, E-days or ED for elapsed days, or E-hours or EHRS for elapsed hours. Elapsed durations take place during both working and non-working time. That is to say, an elapsed duration will be calculated to take place on the usual weekdays, but also over the weekends, holidays, and any other non-working time we've got defined in the calendar. An example of an elapsed duration would be the curing period for concrete, as this doesn't rely on an assigned work resource and will continue to take place during any non-working periods, such as weekends and holidays. And that's it for this video. If you've got any questions about this, please feel free to email us at justask@menlo-academy.com and we'll see what we can do to help you. See you in the next one.